Hello and welcome to AppeGeek, a fun twist on a cooking show where three geeky friends come together to try to bring our favorite fandoms to life by whipping up tasty dishes in our home kitchens based on and inspired by our favorite games, shows, movies, and more. I'm Rach.
I'm Nora.
I'm Jeremy.
And we are three geeks who play with our food.
Alright, so for our second episode, we are doing Cowboy Bebop, which is an anime series that came out in '98. It was dubbed into English in 2001 and released on Cartoon Network in the US. I thought the English dub was great. That's when I saw this for the first time. It was in college. What about you guys?
I watched it a little bit later, but I'll agree. I loved the English dub. I'm usually a bit of an anime purist and always want to watch the original with subs, but this one was fantastic. I actually prefer the English this time.
I agree. I didn't watch it until the Netflix remake was announced, but I loved it.
Yeah, so the Netflix remake just came out this week as we were filming. And it's got John Cho as Spike, it's got Mustafa Shakir as Jet Black, and Daniel Pineda as Faye Valentine, and they're all in the first episode, and it is well acted and amazing.
It's fantastic. I'm really enjoying it so far. I haven't gotten any further than the first episode, but first impressions, I'm loving it. It's a little campy, it's a little cheesy, but in a way that really works. I like that about it.
Oh, I like me some cheese. I haven't seen it yet, but I look forward to seeing it.
I like that they're using the storylines from the anime and kind of compressing them so they can get through it without going through the 20 episodes that was in the original run.
Yeah, I think they're doing a great job, at least based on one episode. Don't come at us later if it ends up being terrible. But based on that first episode, I think they're doing a great job of being true to the source material while still giving this series a life of its own.
What I really like about it is they brought Yoko Kanno back to score the series, and she started from scratch. So she rescored all the songs from the original series, and then she also came up with new songs for the fight scenes and other things to make them not seem as violent or comedic as they might otherwise appear, since there's a lot more killing in the live action than there is the anime.
I didn't know that. But the music is one of the things I think that everybody loves best about this. I'd love to be able to play it in this show, but you know how it is.
I remember reading an interview with Yoko Kanno where she was talking about this, and she said when they asked her, she's like, I'm the biggest fan of Cowboy Bebop there is. Sign me up. As if there was any question, you know, they would want her back or not.
Oh, that's great. I love when they get true fans to actually work on the show.
Well, speaking of true fans, we are three true fans who have come up with our own dishes based on this franchise. And it was easy to do, I think, just as the music plays an interesting part, the characters' food or lack thereof plays an interesting part of this show. So one of the first things that we're going to cook up for you today is our appetizer course, or our pre-dinner course. And for that one, I chose a lobster miso stew. Now, most of our dishes come from the original anime, because as we just mentioned, the live action just dropped, so we didn't have a chance to watch it all and craft recipes based on that. But this lobster miso stew, it actually comes from episode 4 of the original anime, when Spike and Jet are on Ganymede at the Spaceport restaurant, and just like Jet wisely advised Spike not to go for the sea rat saute, we didn't take that route either. We went for the choice that Spike went for, and that's a lobster miso stew. Now, if you've watched all of the original anime, you'll know a recurring theme is that they just can't seem to catch a nice meal. So we wanted to kind of build on that theme. We also didn't want to spend a ton of money on a lobster. So we built our lobster miso stew using shrimp instead of lobster. But otherwise, we're hoping it's pretty close to what Spike ate there in Ganymede.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to see how it turns out. And our second dish is not going to be any surprise to any Cowboy Bebop fans. We went with beef and peppers. Just like in the show, they did not use beef. They was mainly just peppers. We're going to take it a little step further as we make it a meal, and we're going to use soy curls. So we get a little bit of protein in there, and it's going to be a full meal, but I think it's still going to be reminiscent of the beef and peppers on the show.
I had never heard of soy curls until this recipe, so it's going to be really fun. I'm sure a lot of our viewers haven't heard of them either. It's fun to learn how they work.
Yeah, I was going to try something new.
You whipped up some drinks based on the show. Tell us about those.
Sure. So I went with what I like to do for these shows is one cocktail, one mocktail. That way, if you don't drink, you at least have something fun to consume. The first one I went with was the mocktail. It is the red eye or bloody eye, depending on who's talking about it in the show or even which version of the show you're watching. I made it basically a Bloody Mary with a cocktail onion floating inside of it. You do it as a shot. So as you get all the spice and you bite into that onion, you get that big burst of whoa, which is kind of representative of Asimov's taking of the drug, where he goes like that.
Hopefully your drink won't do that to our eyes.
Yes.
Hopefully.
If you touch your eyes after touching the pepper, that typically does that. I've never done that.
Danger alert! Danger alert!
Never. And then after that, I had a cocktail, which I based on some of the scenes you see with Julia, where there's a rose that was meant for her. It falls into a puddle and sits there in the water. I call it the Sodden rose. This is a old school type cocktail where it's a lot of alcohol all at once. It's very bitter, very floral. It's not something you're going to just guzzle. It's meant to be a sipping thing, almost like a martini.
Oh, nice.
Sounds good. So the last dish we made for you is our dessert dish. It was a little bit difficult trying to figure out exactly what we wanted to do for a dessert based on Cowboy Bebop, but we came up with a dish that shows up a couple of times in the original anime. In episode 9, we see a child selling what's called Piyoko, and we believe these are based on the Japanese dish Piyoko, which are little sweet bread, usually shaped in the shape of little chicks or ducks, and filled with some sort of yummy sweet filling. We decided to do our own take on that. They're typically Hiyoko are made with red bean paste. We decided to make our own twist and do that with a pistachio paste that we're going to show you how to make from scratch. We're going to show you how to decorate them into cute little chicks. I think they're absolutely adorable and delicious. I'm probably going to make these all the time. So that's our Cowboy Bebop meal. We hope it all goes according to plan.
Yes.
Ooh. So let's jump right in and start playing with our food.
Sounds good.
I hope I don't cut a thumb off.
Me too.
Me too.
Our first recipe on our Cowboy Bebop menu is our lobster miso stew. We are making ours with shrimp, and we're going to walk you through all of the ingredients you'll need to make this recipe right now. So the first thing is 1 pound of shrimp. Frozen is absolutely fine. That's what we're using. 6 tablespoons of tomato paste. 2 cups of onion chopped. It does not matter how finely chopped. Eventually, most of the ingredients in this recipe are going to end up either being strained or pureed. 1 cup of chopped carrots, 1 cup of chopped celery, 1/2 cup of jasmine rice uncooked, 5 tablespoons of red miso paste. Now, if you haven't used red miso paste before or any miso paste, you may find it to be a little difficult to locate. Some grocery stores carry it, but it's kind of hit or miss. You can almost always find it at Asian grocery stores or Asian markets, and you can usually find it on Amazon as well. You'll also need 4 tablespoons of sherry vinegar, 2 bay leaves. We're using dried, fresh is fine too. 4 cups of broth. We're using a vegetable broth, but you could also use chicken. We'll need 6 cups of water. This is nowhere near 6 cups, but I'm just holding up some water for an example. 1/4 teaspoon of paprika, 1/4 cup of unsalted butter. It's important to make sure you use the unsalted because salted butter will add a bunch of extra salt, and you're already getting quite a bit of salt from your miso paste in your broth. You'll need 2 tablespoons of olive oil and 2 tablespoons of chopped fresh dill. To get started, heat the olive oil in a soup pot or Dutch oven over medium heat. Add in the carrots, celery, and onions and saute until they start to soften up for about 4 to 5 minutes. Then add in the tomato paste and cook for another couple of minutes. At this point, add in the water, kick the heat up to high, and wait for the soup to come to a boil. Once it does, turn the heat down to low, cover, and simmer for about 45 to 50 minutes. After you've simmered your soup for about 45 minutes to an hour, the next step we need is to strain the soup. So to do that, we're going to get a large bowl. I've got an 8-cup bowl here. If your bowl isn't big enough, you might need to do this in a couple of batches. But the biggest thing we want to do is make sure that we get all of the chunks out of our soup. So we're going to take a wire mesh strainer and just place it over whatever bowl we are trying to catch the soup in. And we're just going to pour it straight in, being careful not to splash it all over our counters and ourselves. Now, because this is a soup, you want to make sure you do not leave any liquid behind. So you kind of lift your strainer up and shake and jiggle a little bit and just make sure you're really getting all of the liquid out of there. You can also just kind of press down on the vegetables to make sure that you are not leaving any soup behind. Just disclaimer, it's very hot. And once you've strained all of the juice out of the vegetables, you're going to return this to the pot. If you have any vegetables remaining in your pot from where you dumped everything into the strainer, go ahead and dump those out into your trash or compost or save them for a different recipe. We are done with them for this soup. Go back to the same pot you used to cook your vegetables. Add the rice and cook for 2 to 3 minutes, stirring frequently. Then add the soup liquid that we just strained, chicken stock, miso, paprika, and sherry vinegar. Turn the heat up to high and bring up to a boil. When it's boiling, reduce the heat, cover, and simmer for additional 25 to 30 minutes. Once the soup has simmered, transfer to a blender or use an immersion blender to blend the soup down to a smooth consistency. To cook your shrimp, heat butter in a large skillet for 4 to 5 minutes until it's foamy. Add the shrimp and cook until they're pink. To serve, layer the soup in a bowl, top with 4 to 5 shrimp, and sprinkle with fresh dill. And so there we have our lobster miso soup. Bon AppeGeek.
Happy. That's really good. Hello everyone, and welcome to the cocktail portion of our Cowboy Bebop episode. What I'm going to be making for you is the Sodden Rose. This is a reference to the end credit scene of the anime where you've got the rose sitting in the water puddle. So what we'll start is with a shot of gin. I'm using a gin that's got lemongrass flavoring in it, but any gin would work, especially cream gin would be good in this. Then I do a shot of Kirsch. It's a cherry brandy. If you watch Bake Off, you see them use it a lot in their Black Forest cakes. After that, I do a 1/4 teaspoon of rose water. Rose water is incredibly strong, so don't overdo it with this. After that, I add in an ounce of Simple. If you want it sweeter, by all means, go for it. But this is meant to be something like a martini, so you don't want that much extra liquid aside from alcohol in this. Then I'll add 2 dashes of cardamom bitters. It's the Fee Brothers brand. You can find this at liquor stores or on Amazon. If you taste it straight, it tastes like a root beer, honestly. So what you do is put all that in a shaker, fill that with ice, cap it, shake, and strain into a cocktail glass, champagne flute, martini glass, whatever, glassware is irrelevant in this situation. Next, what I'm going to do is take a cherry and slice it into a rose shape. So I will start on one side, low on the side, do a little slit, and then start doing that all the way around. And as I do that, I'm going to spiral inwards so that at the end of this, when I drop the cherry in there, it should flower open like a rose. So I'll put that in there, And now we've got a rose in a puddle.
Hi friends, we are back. We are going to work on our entree for the Cowboy Bebop show. We're going to make the beef and peppers. And for our beef, we're going to use soy curls. Now soy curls, they look a little scary, but that's okay. Don't worry, we're going to marinate, cook them, and they're going to be delicious. And you can find these for cheap on Amazon. For the marinade, we're also going to use 3 cups of beef broth and 1 cup of water. We're going to add them all to this bowl, and we're going to let it just sit for 30 minutes. Then we'll come back and make the sauce. And we are back. We just finished rehydrating our soy curls. This is what they're going to look like. See, they're a little less scary now. And now it's time to marinate them. So what I've already dumped it into this bowl. What I've got is 3 tablespoons of Worcestershire sauce and 3 tablespoons of sesame oil. You have 1/4 cup of soy sauce, 1.5 teaspoons of liquid smoke, and 1 tablespoon of minced ginger. And then we're just going to pour our soy curls in the bowl. And that's it. We're going to let it sit for another 30 minutes. And then when we come back, we are ready to cook the peppers. Okay, now while our peppers are cooking, we're going to go ahead and make the sauce. So I've got it started right here. What I've got is 3 tablespoons of Worcestershire sauce, 3 tablespoons of sesame oil. I have 1/2 cup of soy sauce this time, 1 teaspoon of garlic powder, 2 tablespoons of cornstarch, 1 tablespoon of minced ginger, and 1 tablespoon of Maggi seasoning. This is usually a browning sauce, but it also adds kind of a salty flavor to it. So, and 3 tablespoons of light brown sugar, which I'll add now. And just mix it up. Once the peppers and onions have cooked down, we'll just add that to it. I am adding 4 tablespoons of cornstarch to the soy curls. I give it a good stir to make sure it's fully coated. To a hot wok, I added 2 tablespoons of Maggi's browning sauce. That'll give the soy curls that brown beef color that we're looking for. Cook those for 3 to 4 minutes until they're browned and removed from the wok. Then I added 3 bell peppers and 1 medium onion sliced. I used all the different color peppers. You can use whatever you want. Cook those until softened. We're going to add the soy curls back into the pan, give it a stir. Then we're going to add the sauce, give that a stir, and we're going to cook that just until that sauce is heated through. Now it's time to plate. I use ramen noodles, but you can use any noodle or rice that you want to serve with this. This is purely for presentation, trying to make it look as pretty as possible. And then we just load it up. I really should have used a spoon for this. This would have made it go faster, but it worked. Just going to keep piling that on, get every last little bit onto the plate. See how nice and brown the soy curls turned out. Oops. We got a pepper overboard. I'm going to grab that. And finally, we top it off with some sesame seeds. I am using the tuxedo sesame seeds because that's what I have. You can use whatever you have. And that's it. Now it's time for the best part. I hope you enjoy the beef and bell peppers. Bon AppeGeek.
Tastes like beef.
Yeah.
Hello everyone, and welcome to the Mocktail portion of our show. We're going to start with a drink that is an homage to the first episode of Cowboy Bebop, where Asimov Sorensen has a drug that he calls bloody eye or red eye. This is a mocktail for those of you that might wake up bleary-eyed but still need to get going. So the way we start is with 1 ounce of tomato juice, or your favorite Bloody Mary mix if you want to take a lot of shortcuts, which is fine. Then we're going to do a 1/4 teaspoon of raw horseradish. That's where you get the zing. And then we're going to do a 1/4 teaspoon of sriracha. I'm using the Tabasco sriracha. The barrel aging makes it taste a little bit better. Then we're going to go with a 1/2 teaspoon of Worcestershire sauce, whatever it's called. Then we'll do a pinch of celery salt, some ice in the shaker, over the shoulder, And then for effect, I'm serving this in a Glencairn glass. Obviously anything's gonna work as long as it holds liquid. So you just fill that up to about the hips of the glass. Drop a eyeball, aka cocktail onion, in there, and then there you go, bottoms up.
Okay guys, so now we're going to start on our dessert portion of the Cowboy Bebop meal, our Piyoko. And the first thing we need to do for that is to make our filling. For this we decided to do a pistachio paste because Nora and I both love pistachios and we wanted something a little different. So to make our pistachio paste, we're going to get our food processor out and add just a few ingredients. This is a really simple thing to make. So the first thing we're going to add is 2 cups of pistachios. If you want a really green pistachio paste, try to get pistachios that have been peeled, but that's a pain and hard to find. So ours is going to be a little brown because it's going to be inside of the Piyoko anyway, so it doesn't matter if it's brown. Then you're going to add 2.5 cups of powdered sugar to your food processor. A half teaspoon of salt. 1/3 cup of any kind of nut oil. We're using walnut oil because it's easier to find than pistachio oil. You can get pistachio oil and that'll just enhance the pistachio-iness of this. You can find those things on Amazon if you can't find them in your local store. And we're gonna get that started grinding up together in our food processor. And as it starts to form a clumpy mess, we're gonna add a little water until it gets to a nice doughy consistency. Okay, so once your pistachio paste has reached about the consistency of cookie dough, and you'll know that once you start seeing essentially a big clump of goo swirling around in one mostly solid mass in your food processor, then you are ready to start forming this paste into our filling for our Piyoko. I like to use an ice cream scoop and my hands to do it. You can do it with a cookie scoop if you've got one though. And so we'll just scoop this out directly from the food processor onto a parchment lined baking sheet. And then kind of roll them up so they're nice, roughly even little balls of paste, and place them on your pan. You should be able to get about 12 out of this. You may get more, you may get less, depending on the size. But just scoop until you run out of filling. When you've finished rolling out all your filling, pop it in the freezer to rest until we're ready to fill the dough. Okay guys, so while our pistachio paste filling is chilling in the freezer, getting into hard little shapes that we can actually mold dough around, we'll go ahead and start making our dough. So for that, we're going to need 3/4 cup of condensed milk, sweetened condensed milk. There is a difference between regular condensed milk and sweetened. Sweetened is a lot thicker and, as the name implies, it's sweet. If you just buy regular condensed milk, it's going to be runny and not form a dough, and it won't be very sweet either. So make sure you get the sweetened condensed. So we're going to pour 1/3 cup of sweetened condensed milk into our mixer. I'm using a stand mixer with a dough attachment. You can use a hand mixer. You just want to be careful about how fast you go so you don't tear your dough to shreds. Or you can always mix by hand, though that's the slow way, and I'm a bit lazy for that. This will take a while to pour in, so we'll go ahead and talk about our next ingredient that we're going to add to it, and that is the yolk of 1 egg. We've gone ahead and separated ours, but I assume you can figure out how to separate an egg. So we'll plop that right in there with our sweetened condensed milk, and we'll just give that a quick stir as soon as we get all the milk poured out of this cup. And we'll stir that just until it's really starting to combine. It doesn't need to be super mixed, just barely incorporated. We will lift up our mixer and add a few more ingredients. We'll add 1 teaspoon of baking powder and 1.5 cups of flour. That is stuck. Now we'll mix that together and for a couple of minutes, just until it starts to get soft and smooth. Then we'll kick up our speed and let it knead for about 2 more minutes until it starts to come together into one solid mass. And now that our dough has come together, we just want to pop it in the fridge for about 30 minutes to let it rest so that we can pull it out and shape it into our chicks. Okay guys, we're back. We have let our dough rest for about 30 minutes. Our filling has been chilling in the freezer and has reached kind of a hard consistency. And we are ready to start assembling these into the little chick shape that they are known for. So what you're going to do to start out is you're going to divide your dough up into equal portions, or at least roughly equal. Depending on your dough, you can probably get about 12 out of these. We ended up doing 9 just because we took some dough just to play around with before coming back on screen. So you can measure it out and make sure you got it equal by weight. You don't have to be that precise either though. You can just eyeball it and get it roughly equal. So once you've got your dough all measured out or eyeballed out, you're going to flatten it down into a little round disc like so. And then you're just going to pick up one of your filling balls. They should be starting to soften a little bit by this time if you pulled them out of the freezer at the same time you started dividing your dough. And you're just going to wrap it around. So you're going to put it in there and just start pulling the dough up over the sides. It's going to crack a little bit as you start to pull it up, as you can kind of see. And don't worry about that. I'm going to show you how you can smooth it back out and make sure that it's not full of cracks before it goes in the oven and before you really even shape it into a chick shape. So this one I've got fully wrapped. You can't see any bits of the filling. So all I'm going to do is just roll it around in my hand for a while until it gets kind of smooth.
Oops, that was a little sticky.
As you can see here after rolling, pretty smooth. Doesn't have to be perfect, but you don't want any big cracks. This dough is pretty soft and it tends to crack anyway if you over bake it or you bake it at too hot of a temperature. So you definitely don't want to put it in the oven with any cracks or you're kind of starting off on a bad note.
Oh yeah, that really works when you roll it out. I had a couple cracks.
So once you get it kind of smooth and fully covered, then you're going to start shaping it into chick shape. And so what you're going to do there is just start lightly rolling it. Don't press too hard or you will rip your dough and your filling will fall out. Just start lightly working it into a cylindrical shape. That seems a little counterintuitive because when we think of a chick, we don't really think of a cylinder, but that's really the best method to get it the right shape. So once you've got it rolled into a little cylinder, you don't want it to be super long and skinny. And if you've had your dough or your filling sitting out while you've been working your dough, it should be starting to soften a little bit. You shouldn't have a ton of trouble rolling it into this cylinder. If you're getting a ton of resistance, just let it rest a little bit more so you don't tear your dough. So once you've got a little cylinder, all we're going to do is just start pinching up at the top to form our chick's little head. So we're just going to, I find it easier if we set it down, but you're just going to pinch and smush down just like this until you get roughly the shape of like a Peeps candy. You want to make sure that the head of the chick is probably a little more defined than you think it needs to be. So really push in and make sure it's got a pretty defined neck, because when we bake them, they tend to kind of sploot out anyway. And if you don't, it'll kind of look like your chick just kind of melted in the snow. Maybe they're a snow chick that melted.
That could also be cute.
Yeah, it could be. Depends on what you want to go for. So once you have a roughly body and head shaped chick, then all you're going to do is take your fingers. I like to use my thumb and index finger and just pinch out a little beak.
Oh, nice.
Your beak can be going straight out, it can be straight up, whichever way you want your chick to really be looking. But that's our first one here. And so as we work through, we're just going to form all of these into our little chick shapes, and then we're going to pop them in the oven at 300 degrees for about 15 minutes. As I mentioned already, this dough has a tendency to crack, so you really want to pay attention to it. Make sure you don't over bake it, because if you do, you'll end up with cracked chicks, and that doesn't look so great. So we're going to go ahead and finish these up and pop them in the oven, and we'll be back after they're done baking to show you what to do to make their eyes and wings. Okay Okay, so after your little chicks come out of the oven, you want to let them cool for just a minute or two, just so they're cool enough for you can handle them without burning your hands. And we are going to put the eyes and the wings on your chicks. Now to do this, we're using kind of an unconventional method of decorating. What you're going to do is you're going to basically sear the eyes and wings onto these little chicks. That works better than adding like chocolate sauce or some of the other ways that people like to decorate and add little additions. This dough is like a hard like roll type dough almost, and so that stuff doesn't stick. And if you try to paint your chick's eyes on with like food color or chocolate sauce, he's just going to look like he's been crying with a face full of makeup. So to sear that on, we're going to use a metal skewer. You can use a butter knife. You got to be a little bit more precise with that. Really anything metallic, and we're going to use a flame. We're using a kitchen torch. Most any kind of flame will do, with some exceptions. You don't want to do this over a candle. You've got chemicals and stuff in your candle wax, all that perfume and stuff. You don't really want to stick something that's going to stick into food into a candle. Plus, it's just gross. It might get waxy. You don't want to do this over really anything with any sort of chemicals. You don't want to do this over like a wide open outdoor flame for obvious reasons. A tiki torch, that kind of stuff, because you've got that oil that might come in. You don't want to do this over an active arson scene, for example. But most other types of flame will work. A cigarette lighter, a flame on your oven, if you've got like a gas stove or oven, those types of things will work. But we're using this little kitchen torch. These are relatively cheap. Obviously, whatever method you choose, be careful. You are working with a actual live flame. You can get burnt. You can set things on fire. If you are a kid, have adult supervision. If you're doing this with your kids, please make sure they don't burn themselves. And that goes for adults too. I'm pretty clumsy. I'm not saying kids are the only ones that are going to set themselves on fire. So we're going to get this going. And so all you want to do is take the tip of your skewer and just kind of stick it in the flame, right in it. Don't be afraid to really get it in there. It's metal. You're not going to hurt the skewer. Just stick it in there for a second or two till it gets kind of hot. And then you're going to pick up your chick and you're just going to poke in and sear in some eyes. You want to work pretty quickly because these will cool down pretty quickly after being in the flame. And that's a good thing. That'll keep you from burning yourself, or it'll help you not burn yourself and help you not make stains on your countertops, for example. I do recommend having a cutting board or something to lay these on so you don't burn your countertops. If you push in kind of directly with your skewer, you'll get more of a just eye shape. If you kind of lay sideways, that'll make a longer shape, and that's really how we're going to use for the wings, but it's not really the best shape for the eyeballs. It'll kind of make them too big. So for the wings, like I said, we're just going to kind of stick our skewer back in. We're going to go a little to the side instead of on the tip this time, and then we're just going to pick this chick up and press in to make a little wing.
Very nice. All right.
And of course, these are your creations. You can add whatever kinds of decorations you want. If you want to get very intricate and give your chicks tattoos, by all means, go for it.
Please do that. And
let us see. Post them on Instagram, post them somewhere, use hashtag #AppeGeek. Let us see what kind of crazy creations you come up with. But we're just going to keep it simple with eyes and wings.
They're a little uneven. That's okay.
That's okay.
Those little eyes. So cute.
And that's all there is to it. We're just going to repeat this on all 12 of our little chicks. They're all going to look different because that's what happens when you're making things at home, and that's what happens when you're using a skewer and a flame to do your decorating.
You're trying to go fast.
But definitely let us see how yours turned out. Okay, so there you have it, our Piyoko. They're cute enough to take as a souvenir to your friends.
Yes, they're very cute. Look at his little eyes.
Tweet, tweet. Bon appetit.
Bon appetit. So good.
Love that pistachio.
Oh my
filling.
goodness.
So that is our Cowboy Bebop meal. I had a blast. I loved it. What did you guys
Oh,
think?
it was so much fun. I think my favorite part was the Sodden Rose drink. You did a really good job on that.
It was really good.
My favorite was by far the Piyoko. It tastes good. The pistachio was great. The dough that you guys made up was amazing. And then the best part was we got to set stuff on fire.
Yeah, that's always fun.
It was fun. They were so much fun to decorate. I'm glad we didn't set our house on fire
Yes,
in the
it's always
process.
great. And they're so cute, the little eyes.
I love the Piyoko too. I can't get over how cute they are. I can't get over how delicious the pistachio paste was. But so that I say something different than you, so I don't just steal your answer, I'm going to go with the beef and bell peppers. You really made a believer out of me with soy curls. I was super skeptical, but they were good. It tasted like beef.
Yeah, so if you want to try that or any of these recipes, we'd love to see how it turned out and what your favorite was. So just send us a pic, #BonAppeGeek.
You can find us on most social media, Twitter, Facebook, TikTok, and Instagram at AppeGeek Show. Make sure you put that show in there or you'll get somebody that's not us. And you can also find our recipes in a blog format so you get all of the proportions. You're not having to stop and start our video over and over at our website at www.bonappegeekshow.com.
And that'll all be listed below in the description box. And while you're there, we are a new show, so if you want to hit that subscribe button, it would really help us out.
So who's signing up for the MySpace account?
I'll do that. I'll do that.
Perfect.
Yeah.
We've got it all covered.
Because Tom will be our friend at least.
Tom
Tom will
is
be our
friend.
number one fan.
Yeah.
All right, guys, that's our show.
Bye.
Bye.